All right, y'all, before we get into today's video, I wanted to mention that I'm giving out a 30% off discount code for all of my courses until the end of this year. I have a course on the Hippopotamus defense, the Ponziani opening, the Czech-Pirc defense, and finally, how to crush the Scandinavian defense with the move of Knight C3. All you got to do to get that 30% off discount code, go down to the pinned comment, go down to the description below, plug in the discount code 2024, and you will receive 30% off on any of the courses you decide to invest in. Let's head over to the video. There's so many chess players out there that hate playing against the move of pawn to d4. It can be so freaking boring. That's what I felt when I was growing up. I played chess from around 7 to 14 pretty intensely. I got up to 2163, I think, USCF. Yeah, during that whole time, I just couldn't stand d4. Honestly, I think my percentage of wins against d4 is probably pretty low the whole way through that period of my life. I just could not stand this move. I couldn't find anything fun against it. Now, when I returned to competitive chess, I found two openings that I really enjoy. One of them being the Hippopotamus defense against d4, and the other one being the Charlick Gambit. Originally, I learned the Charlick Gambit from my guy, Russ Southern, and Russ Southern and I have partnered together to release a chessable course that we're looking to launch in 2025. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. The Charlick Gambit is so much freaking fun. It starts out with the England Gambit with this move e5. A lot of white players know how to refute that, but not a lot of white players know what to do the move d6, let alone have even seen this move d6 with the Charlick offering up that second pawn. And I'm playing this in Title Tuesday, right? In the latest Title Tuesday, I played the Charlick. I'm playing up against a fellow national master from the US, rated 2620 in online chess in the Blitz category. And yeah, I mean, if white wants to take, we can capture back with our bishop, play moves like knight c6, queen e7, bishop g4 often. We're looking to castle queenside very quickly. And even if we don't get a trick or trap very early, we're going to get a very fun attacking game much of the time. And that makes it fun, right? You don't got to worry about the London system anymore. You don't got to worry about the Catalan. You brought them into your theory. You brought them into your understanding and your prep. And I'm telling you guys, if you guys play online chess, you can blast people with this left and right if you know what you're doing. Here, there's the move bishop f4. This is what my opponent does. My opponent doesn't even take on d6. We now play knight c6. Look, if white wants to take on d6 with the pawn, if they want to do that, there's now this idea of queen to f6. We now have a triangle kind of thing going on, right? We're attacking the bishop. We're attacking the pawn on b2 that's hanging. We're also, really putting a lot of pressure on d6 as well with a bishop, pawn, and queen. And oftentimes, I don't know if this is everybody, but I personally see the move of bishop c1 a lot. White going, you know what? I'm going to save my bishop. In that case, okay, we take back. Sure, we're still down a pawn, but look at the development that we have. This is just a fun game of chess. We can castle queenside very quickly, and oftentimes white has a hard time hanging on to their position. Going back though, right? In this game here, we don't see that move. We see knight f3. In that case, bishop g4. Again, if you want to take, I'm playing queen f6. I'm playing queen f6 there. Right, I'm not taking with the bishop or the pawn. Queen f6, triangle idea, and continuing to develop at a rapid pace. Here we see the move e3. My opponent here, 2620, national master, move 5. Move 5. This is the 2600. Move 5 in a blitz game. This isn't bullet. Move 5. Black's already better. Black's already better. We play this move of d takes e5. White here plays the best move of queen takes on d8. Let's capture with the rook. The rook supports the queen. If you want to take with the knight, checkmate, game over. If you want to take with the bishop, we take back. Your knight cannot capture unless you want to get mated again. So we see the best move here of bishop to g3. Now here I should have went with this move of knight b4. As we were filming the Charlick Gambit course, I remember that this is a very key idea going after that pawn. For some reason in this game, I was going, oh, knight a3, and then I don't know, like, what do I do here, right? But turns out f6, and we have a very solid, fun position. White cannot castle queenside. We have pressure on c2, which the knight on a3 is babysitting. Both the knight on a3 and the rook on a1 are both babysitters right now. And they're not getting paid for it either. They're just straight up, just watching, the pawns on c2 and a2. That's really their whole purpose in the game right now. And if a move like c3 trying to kick our knight out, we can throw in a check on d3, and the engine still really likes our game here. Keep in mind at this point we are sitting at even material. We could also play bishop f5. You can't even take our knight unless you want to get checked. And of course, if knight d2, you lose your knight. If king e2, we throw in a check, and you're still going to lose a piece. And we're next going to be capturing off on g2, attacking a rook, attacking a knight. We're already up material, and we're going to go up more. Going back to bishop g3, though, I didn't play that. I played this move of a6. not a huge mistake or anything. We still have a very good position for black, slight advantage for black there. After knight c3, I play this move of bishop takes f3 and bishop to b4. Now, this is a line where white decided, you know what, I'm just going to trade down. I don't want the smoke with the Charlok. I'm just going to trade down. But here's black. We still have a great game. We still have more activity. Bishop e2. I end up playing this move of knight f6. Rook d1. I decide to take on c3. Turns out the best move, and bishop takes e3 is the second best, but the best move is knight to d5. Knight to d5, going after that knight. The only piece that can really defend it is this rook. I mean, I guess the king can technically defend it, but it's not really doing that because we just take on c3, and guess what? You're in check by our rook. Not great. So if rook d3, we can take on c3. If you want to take with our, if with your rook on d8, we're going to capture back, and we just have too many numbers on c3. We are going to go up a pawn there. And if b takes c3, we get rid of your rook and then take. We're up a pawn. But I instead play this move, bishop takes c3. I took on d1, played king e7. c4 is played. And now I ended up playing this move of h6 and knight h5, going after that bishop on g3. Now, I personally actually really like playing with knights in the endgame, unless I'm going up against a bishop pair. This is obviously very general, right, what I'm saying right now, but just my personal preference. In most endgames, I would rather have a knight than a bishop. When you have a bishop in the endgame, your opponent can just put pawns on the opposite color of your bishop, and your bishop oftentimes just feels kind of useless. And again, this is more just general, subjective talk here. I'm not telling you that you got to have that approach too, but when I'm playing against two bishops, well, my pawns can't hide. My pawns can't hide, right? So I do want to get rid of one of these bishops. So in the game here, we have the move of pawn to f4. Now my knight is being attacked, and I go, you know what? I'm going to snatch off that bishop. I was expecting f takes g3. And apparently, according to the engine, knight b8 is the best move going backwards. But I think the whole point there is that we're looking to bring this knight to d7, look at squares like c5 as one option that we can go with. And if we go back to b8 and the pawn takes, you got two sets of double isolated pawns on the e file and the c file. Those pawns are simply not going to be able to survive. Of course, here I would personally probably just play a move like rook d8. I mean, that just feels very natural. If white wants to trade, fine, we'll trade. King d6, let's activate our king here. And this is really where isolated pawns are a big issue. I actually don't always think double pawns are a big issue. I think double pawns are often, given a really bad rap, but sometimes double pawns, oftentimes really, they're not too bad as long as they're in a clump, as long as they're protecting one another. But if you have isolated, or even more than that, doubled isolated pawns, those pawns are very prone to weakness. Not just double pawns, but double isolated. These pawns right here, doubled and isolated. They cannot protect each other. Nothing can protect them. They can't protect anything else when you're talking about pawn-to-pawn support. If a move like king d2, we can take on f4, play a move like king c5. Just notice how solid that king is. That king ain't getting kicked around by anything. And if a move like king c3, we can play knight e7. That way, if the bishop tries to activate, we can play c6. Sometimes it's good to put pawns on the opposite color of the bishop. Sometimes in this case, sure, it's on the same color, but what are you going to do? You're not going to take on c6. And you're just not going to be able to win those pawns. So in this case, the knight can keep dancing. c4, major weakness, probably the biggest weakness that I see right now. Does black have any pawn weaknesses? No, not at all, right? So knight takes g3. In the game, though, we have h takes. I end up taking with my e-pawn, and e takes f4 is the best move there, but instead we see g takes. What does this give us? A passed pawn. This pawn on h6 is passed. When we're talking about passed pawns, we're not worried about pieces in the way. We're talking about pawns that could stop it. So even if there's a pawn right here, oh, that's not a passed pawn anymore because a pawn can stop it. Obviously, if a pawn's on h2, it's not, this pawn on h6 isn't passed anymore. But in this case, no pawn can stop this pawn, right? So it's passed. Here I play this move g6 to support the h5 push. Passed pawns must be pushed. We have h4, and now the move of knight d8. I don't want to get my pawn structure messed up. I want to save my knight. I like the knight in the endgame. I like how the knight right now is very maneuverable. And after king d3, I play c6, just going, you know what, that bishop, you're just going to be staring at asphalt. You're going to be staring at my pawn on c6. And if king e2, now king d6, I'll let white do this. I'll let white try to, win my pawn on h4. I'm going to keep activating my king. In the game here, the king goes, you know what, I'm going to go back to d3. But let's say we see a move like king f1. Let's keep activating. Let's keep going crazy here with the king. In the endgame, king activity is paramount. It is huge. If a move like bishop e2, let's keep activating. King b4, king g2. I'm not going to spend all day trying to hang on to this pawn. I'm going to keep attacking here. King a3. King a3. And by the way, if you try to defend it, king b2. When you're playing in the endgame, sometimes you got to defend. But overall, if I have the choice between defending something all day long or going, you know what, take it, I'm going to start attacking your stuff, I always do the second, or almost always. I shouldn't probably say always, but much of the time, I think endgame players just try too much to hold on to their pawn instead of going, you know what, take it. I'm going to take one of yours. Going back to the move king d6, again, white goes, you know, I'm going to go back. We now have h3. This actually turns out to be an error or an inaccuracy for me. Still better for black, but white here can actually lock this pawn in on a light square by playing rook h2. Now this pawn is a target, right? It's not like the pawn on c6 that's very well defended by a pawn. This pawn isn't defended by any pawn. Bishop g4 is something that white could look at. So if we play something like f5 preventing that, white can still swing around their bishop to f1. Of course, we can play king b2, and white can win that pawn, in which case, you know, we play something like knight e6 as an option to just prevent that king from even thinking about entering d4. We still have king a3, king takes a2 ideas. We're still playing for a win here as black, but all that to say, h3 here, not the right timing. My opponent misses that, though. They play this move, bishop to g4, and that allows me to put my pawn on a dark square. Now the only piece that can help this rook get rid of the pawn is the king. And if you move the king all the way over there, ours again is going to get very busy. Here we have the move king e2. I play king c5. King f3. f5 is played. This bishop is trapped. The bishop's done. The bishop tries to get something for itself. e4, I take. I capture on c4. f5 is played. Knight f7. I'm trying to prevent activity from my opponent. You want to activate your pieces and you want to prevent activity from your opponent, generally speaking, and in this position, that's one way to do that. f6. I don't want this king to run in right away. I'm going to play rook h5. And this took one move to stop the king from coming in here. Now, of course, the king can come attack me, but that used up a couple of tempi, which helped my king get into a better spot. Rook h6, king f5, I take off the pawn. King e6, I throw in a check. King f5, I go back. Finally, I go, you know what? I'm not doing this all day. I'm going to h8. And after king e7, I throw in a check. You can block with the pawn, but you're just going to lose it. King f8 is played. And there's a lot of different moves to play here. I ended up seeing, you know what? I'm just going to throw in a check and capture on f6. If you take my knight, right? Let's just say you do it. If you take my knight, rook takes f2. This rook is babysitting our pawn from promotion. That's just a pretty obvious thing. That rook is blocking up the pawn from promoting. And it's going to be hard to get this pawn to promote if you're just looking at the pawn and the rook here. However, what else do we have? Well, we have a king and 3 pawns against 1. We can easily go eat this or just go king b2 and start pushing that c pawn like crazy. And this king can't even get over here because the rook is blocking it out. So the king is going to have to try to go up to g3. That's going to take way too long. By then, we're going to have a c pawn way down the board. White is losing this. So we instead see the move rook takes h2, a much better try from white. But here I can play knight g6. When you attack both, I'm playing rook d6. I still like my knight. I'm still going to hang on to it. f4 with check against my king. And I ended up playing king b1. Just you know, trying to eye up that pawn, letting this pawn have a free way to start pushing down the board like you're in, you know, going down the highway, like you're in a Radiator Springs. Shout out to the Cars movie. I got the Lightning McQueen. I spaced out there for a second. And the Mater Legos. My wife got them for me. And again, I said this in another video, but if y'all want to come after me for me liking the movie Cars, for that being my favorite kids movie, I want the smoke. I want all of it. So, all right, king b1. f5 is playing the game here. I ended up playing the move of knight to e5, f6, c5. Right? White can push the pawn. That's fine. At that point, I can just take it. Right? I mean, if they push, I can play rook back and then sack if we see rook f2, or I can just take it right away. In either case, that c-pawn is unstoppable. We see rook e2, I throw in a check, knight g4, attacking the pawn. My idea there is if you push the pawn, check, I win it. So my opponent doesn't go for that. They instead go for the much better try of rook to e6, but in this case, I go, you know what, I'm going to take off the pawn. Guys, I talk a lot about not giving back material, but that's when we're in the opening or in the middle game. Okay, not the end game. In this case, I do give back material. I don't think too much about it. The whole point is I know I have a win here, right? At this point in the game, +5, +2, both equal a win. And by simplifying this position, I can now push my pawn up to c4. I play rook c7, c3, and this game is going to be over because we're just going to look to promote this pawn. You can sacrifice for the pawn or for the queen once it promotes, but white just has no chance here. There's no stopping that pawn, and this king is way out of position. So just keep that in mind. Right? I'm not telling you guys to always sacrifice material. Oftentimes that's a really bad idea. But if you're in the end game and you see a way to go, you know what? I see a rook there and I have a queen, but I'm just going to take it. I'm still going to be up 4 points. I'm still going to have a knight and a pawn that's about to promote, whatever it is, right? If you give some material back in the end game to get a very simple win, that's what I usually do. That's just my approach. But let me know what your approach is down below, right? A lot of players here, going back to Rookie 6, they might not want to take on F6. They might want to try something else. They might want to try to not let this pawn promote, but still keep the knight. But I know I have a win here. I just take off the freaking pawn. I push, and there's no stopping it. If you're playing white. So I hope you all enjoyed this game. The Charlock Gambit is so much fun. And this game in particular is more of a boring one, right? My opponent goes, you know what? I don't want the smoke with the Charlock. I don't want all that development from black. I'm just going to let you take the pawn back and we're going to trade off queens. But then that results with black having a better game because we capture back with our rook. White captured with their queen. We take with the rook. We have ownership of that file. I missed knight b4, but I still had a solid game there. And that's what you see in the Charlock. This is one of those type of games where your opponent, they slow you down, but you're still totally fine. And in fact, much of the time, you're just better. Hope you guys enjoy this. See y'all in the next one. Peace. Guys, I hope y'all enjoyed today's video. And just a quick reminder that in addition to the 30% off all online courses sale this month, we wanted to also give a 20% off sale on our physical merch all December. We got shirts, hoodies, mugs, and more on the merch shelf below, and we got a lot more on the website. So check them out and use the code WINTER20 for 20% off. On top of that, I wanted to give a big shout out to my Patreon supporters for the month of December in 2024. I appreciate you guys a ton. It's been great getting to know you. And I'm just humbled by your support. And if you guys haven't thought about joining the Patreon community before, there's some exclusive benefits that you gain by becoming a member. And I look forward to seeing you over there on the platform. Peace.